Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this evening's Policy and Oversight Board. My name's Councillor Lisa Homan, and I chair the Policy and Oversight Board. Before we start, just a few housekeeping points, and I think members are familiar with, but I'll just remind everyone. If the fire alarm sounds, please leave the meeting in an orderly fashion by the staff fire exit, which is behind me to the right. Officers will direct you to the assembly point. By participating in the meeting this evening, you are agreeing to be a live stream on the council's YouTube channel. And could I just remind officers when you speak to just introduce yourselves on when you address the committee for the first time, so that we know who the person speaking is. So on that note, I will go to the agenda, and I will firstly go to apologies for absence. We've got apologies, I believe, from Councillor Salus, Councillor Treyi, and I believe Councillor Brocklebank Fowler for lateness. Okay. Could I now bring you to the minutes of the previous meeting, which was held on the 5th of February 2025, when we looked at the budget for the year. Are there any matters arising or follow-ups from that anybody wants to raise at this point? No? Are the minutes of the meeting agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much, everybody. That brings us to the first item on the agenda this evening, which is the workforce strategy update. We have had a report similar to this a while ago now, so it'll be interesting to have an update. So could I invite Mary Lamont to introduce the report? Thank you, Mary.
Do you want me to start again? No, okay. So David, I did put some slides together just to summarise the report, which I thought might be helpful. David's just going to put that up onto the screen. I do apologise, I appreciate some of that's quite small, but I'm going to go through that regardless. So just a bit of an introduction about our goal. Our goal is to become one of the most inclusive boroughs, the most inclusive borough to work for. And the report provides an update on the journey that we've been on. As we said, we came here some time ago and brought an update previously. This is a little bit about where we've progressed, particularly around our life cycle practices and our inclusive recruitment, internal development and progression. And everyone will be fully aware that, that we are sort of dealing with some of this during turbulent times in terms of recruitment and retention across the whole of London and wider. Our aim in terms of being inclusive will help us to be able to understand better how our workforce drives success. And in addition to what's in the report, we also very closely monitor and develop our workforce profiling that we are constantly monitoring, benchmarking against and comparing in terms of how we're doing. So we'll move on. Sorry, there's just a couple of little charts in there that just demonstrate where we are in terms of our workforce demographics. And you can see pretty much 50-50 around the gender, and a bit more of a detailed plan there in terms of the ethnicity of the workforce. Thank you. So again, as I've touched on already, we'll all be very aware of the key challenges that we're all faced with, and how we are tackling some of those challenges in terms of attracting the best talent to come and work for Hammersmith and Fulham. I've just listed some of those challenges just by way of providing a little bit of detail. We talked last time about the ageing population, and that continues to be a challenge for us. There is a slide later on in terms of what we're doing around being an age-friendly employer. Skills gaps, incredibly important, and we'll talk more about what we're doing around development and internal progression and recruitment and retention. I've talked about the promotion of diversity and inclusion already, and how you'll see how that links in to what we're doing here. Very important is the employee engagement piece, but also not forgetting that we are managing in some tight budgetary constraints. And we're not on our own there. Thank you, David. So yeah, a little bit more about what we're doing to address these challenges. I think when we came previously, we talked about our Get Ahead programme. We're really proud of the Get Ahead programme and what we've been able to do in terms of developing that and continuing to develop the Get Ahead programme over time. But ultimately, that's our internal progression and literally how we will work with our workforce in terms of identifying routes, pathways, career pathways, opportunities, and development initiatives through coaching and development, mentoring, and much, much more than that. What we do here is we have the H&F Academy, and sitting underneath or below the H&F Academy umbrella, we have our apprenticeships programme, our graduates, our supported interns, and relatively newly reintroduced our work experience opportunities. And then again, sitting below all of that is the internal development and progression that we're doing. And we've got some stats to share with you later on. We're really excited about later on in the next couple of months, in fact, about starting to introduce the new local bespoke graduate programme aimed at growing our own and as a pilot within our housing services. And that's an initiative designed to tackle some of the challenges that we've seen in terms of getting in graduates that are local residents, but also where we've got graduation programme that we really will deal with some of where we've got some challenges ourselves in terms of our talent. So we're really excited about that initiative, which we'll see more of in the next couple of months. And aligned to that, our work experience offer that I've mentioned already, that's reintroduced, but also a particular piece around care experience leavers as well for work experience, similarly to our supported intern programme. Thank you, David. So just going into a little bit more detail in terms of internal development. So management development is important to us in terms of succession planning. And we offer aspiring manager and emerging leaders courses as part of that management development. But alongside that, we have our what we call management essentials training, which is available for all managers in terms of making sure that our managers are equipped to be able to do their roles with the support that they need. So, for example, we'd be looking there at absence management or appraisals. It would be that life cycle of a manager. We will review our senior leadership development offer over the next few months. And in terms of, we've touched on apprenticeships, but one of the areas that we're really proud of is the links we have on our social worker apprenticeship degree programme. We're on our 5th year now, and we take cohorts through the apprenticeship degree programme every year, and that's where they can continue to work, but they're also developing their social worker degree at the same time. In terms of the challenges around recruitment of social workers, we have introduced our own microsite, which is on our children's services jobs, and we've also linked in with the London Social Work Jobs platform. In addition to that, we're also able to present and promote jobs within our own job portal where we have a need to, and we can do that with any of the roles across the organisation. We're looking at a new employee benefits platform at the moment. We're exploring that, which is really exciting. The one we've had in place has been in place for a number of years. And so we'll be really excited to update and promote a new platform in terms of employee benefits. That's something we're exploring as now. We continue to we're always looking at our recruitment processes and how we can streamline and improve and enhance. And some of that we do with our networks, with our network groups, which we'll talk about a little bit more. But it's really important that there's a good candidate and manager experience in terms of that onboarding piece and the recruitment. And again, looking at reinforcing our induction and probationary processes, that the onboarding piece is so important. And so making sure that that recruitment and then the probation and the induction are all really well, working really well is really important to us. And then we have developed and delivered, in conjunction with Inclusion London, our disability equity and co-production training. So far we've taken cohorts of managers through that training, and in this year we'll then be rolling that out wider to the wider workforce. I won't spend too much time going into too much detail unless there's something specific. I'm a bit concerned I might talk too much. But you can see on this particular slide, we talk about our flexible and hybrid working options. Obviously, that's always where business needs allow. It's really important that we get the right balance there. And that the tools and resources that are available to support staff there. We've done a lot this year on performance excellence, and we will be doing more to make sure that that's being reinforced. The local pulse staff surveys is something that we run on a departmental basis by way of a checking in. And again, looking at exploring, very initial exploration around what we can do in terms of AI with Copilot and Microsoft Teams, and making sure that, again, the other thing that's really important for us is how we present ourselves in terms of that recruitment and resourcing element. So some training around writing the right role profiles. And we're delighted to introduce a new online appraisal process in the next month or two as well. So that will all be online. It'll make lives much more easier for many. Thank you, David. So policies and procedures, we're reviewing those constantly, making sure that we've got our policies are fit for purpose and that we're up to date. We talk a lot about mandatory training sessions. That's all around compliance for the organisation. And you'll see up there, we've named a few in terms of information management, phishing, cybersecurity. They're really, really important for us at the moment. And we will conduct regular audits to assess compliance as a result of that. I just noticed I've got 2 paragraphs in there twice as a duplication, so apologies for that. But yeah, open communication channels are incredibly important to us, and also a focus on effective workforce planning. We do that through the workforce planning. We do that through our regular performance management boards and our KPIs. Thank you, David. I just wanted to put this one up here because this sort of demonstrates how we work with our partners and other groups in terms of accreditations. But very importantly, it's around, you know, what we're doing that with. So the Armed Forces Covenant is incredibly important to us. We're gold members. Disability, we're actually applying for disability leader at the moment. And then you'll see the other accreditations are all sort of very, very important to the organisation's priorities. Thank you. I said I'd included a slide on an age-friendly employer. We are accredited age-friendly employer, and we run a couple of sessions. Sorry, we run an annual event every year, but we're constantly looking at how we make sure, you know, knowing how the demographics are, knowing what the population looks like, is how are we making sure that we're supporting and celebrating the diversity of the workforce demographics that we have. Thanks, David. Measures of success, again, I've mentioned the KPIs and the performance board. It's really incredibly important to us that we're able to very ably present back where we're making a difference. And so having these key measures are, these are just some examples. It's not extensive, but benchmarking, looking at our analytics. We've produced some new dashboards in the last year as well, which are really helping us. We've done that in collaboration with our BI colleagues. So having that data available will really help us to be able to make sure that we're able to deliver on our equalities plans and our other objectives and priorities. Thank you. I did talk earlier about the Get Ahead, and this is just a quick slide just to show you what we're able to demonstrate and see through our Get Ahead programme. This really does help us to identify where there may be gaps, where we may need to do a little bit more, but this is all about our internal movement. And this also helps us to see where we're on a trajectory. We're able to forecast what's going on across the workforce population. Thank you. And just a few indicators that we look at as a matter of course in terms of how we're doing. I won't go through them all. I'll wait and see if you have any questions. Thank you. Our apprenticeship programme, as you know, we're incredibly proud of what we do in terms of our apprenticeships. The data submissions have changed in the last year, and we're no longer required to set a public sector target. That said, we're still looking at the public sector target, but we've now got new indicators that we're being asked to measure against, and so they are in that second table. And I would like to draw out of there one of the things we are really proud of, and that's the 50% of new hires were NEET compared to 17% across other boroughs. There is some really interesting data there. Obviously, we will use that to continue to analyse and determine where we need to do more. Thanks, David. Sorry. And then the final slide is just a quick slide on staff safety. And that's just in terms of what we're doing to make sure that we are equipping our staff with the skills and training that they need to deliver services safely without being subjected or becoming victims of violence or aggression themselves. So there's just a few bullet points there. It's not exhaustive. There is more that we do around this as needed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Mary. I'm going to open it up to the committee and see who's got some questions. Councillor Daly.
Thanks, Chair. Mary, thank you very much. It was a really interesting report. I really enjoyed reading it. I would like to ask you a few questions about some of the metrics, if I may. You said that you wouldn't go through it because you expected some questions. So, the turnover figure is 10.22%, which sounds really, for the number of for the head count, the number of employees sounds really successful. Yeah. That figure will be an average across all the departments. And I wondered if you had any more details of departments that have a lower, less than 10.22, and those that have a higher turnover rate.
Yeah, so we do have a breakdown, and if I could, I would like to ask I can send that separately because I don't have that here with me right here and now. But we do look at those breakdowns at our, what we call our resources management board, which you would have seen reference to in the report. So we're looking at the breakdowns on a monthly basis in terms of making sure that, you know, we're monitoring closely. But just to answer your question, can I bring that separately to?
In terms of departmental
the breakdown,
yeah,
yes,
that could be an action point to come out. Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah.
And then another question again on kind of metrics. There are a few sort of surveys out there. You know, the Sunday Times gave way to B companies, and they have some quite soft metrics that they use. They go out and they ask employees And one of them is about being a fair deal. So
Yeah.
how fair they think that
Yeah.
their pay is. One is about well-being, so
Yeah.
balance, and the other one is about kind of social conscience.
Yes.
And I wondered if there were ever any sort of equivalent surveys done internally.
Yes, so there are, as part of our wider workforce survey, we do look at those elements, particularly the well-being and the fair deal piece. But over and above that, there's the departments. The departments do pulse surveys, and those types of questions, those soft questions, are within those surveys. And again, be happy to share some of those survey questions to give you a feel for what we are looking at across the workforce.
It'd just be really interesting to see how it stacks up against, some of those kind of private companies and some of their metrics. But if they're readily available, then I'd be really interested.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it's more the questions that we're asking. For the data, I'd need to go out to the departments to get that, but happy to do so. And I just wanted to add as a point really that obviously wellbeing is really important to us as an organisation. And not only would we see something like that within our surveys, we also expect the conversation to be happening at the one-to-ones as well, the regular one-to-ones. Yeah.
Thank you. And one more question. Can I just ask how the information that you bring in and the metrics that you use feed into the strategy, the kind of the employment strategy, and how long that process is?
Not quite sure what you mean about how long the process is.
So just from the stats you've got, and then you're looking at them, how is that taken strategically? How often is there a conversation strategically that refers to that?
We're regularly having conversations at various levels in terms of the strategic workforce position, and succession planning is one of those conversations that we would have quarterly. Monthly at RMB. So what actually happens is, with the data, we take the data sets every month to the Resources Management Board. Those data sets are then informing what our workforce strategy needs to be, so that it's a continuous cycle.
That's great to hear. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, before I ask anybody, I'll just come back to you in a second, Councillor Perez. Can I ask, we're talking about the stats for staff turnover. I think probably some of us have been around quite a long time, and we can remember the odd member of staff that's kind of done some ridiculous thing like 50 years service for the council.
Yes.
I just wonder if we've got some information about the length of service across our workforce, because that would be quite an interesting piece of information as well. That perhaps that's something that could also come back with the data on the departmental turnover.
Yes, we've done an awful lot in terms of longevity. We do our long service awards as well. So yeah, we definitely could bring some information back.
I think that would be an interesting thing to see. Having seen some people get these awards, it'd be really good. Councillor Perez.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much for the report. I know some of the challenges facing in terms of recruitment of social workers. So what are those challenges? What do you think are those challenges that we're facing, and also some of the measures that you've mentioned to help with the recruitment and retention? Have you seen a positive impact in terms of these policies being implemented?
So personally, I think yes is the answer to that. You know, one of the main challenges we have is we're one of 32 boroughs, across London. So it's a very competitive market. What we do see with our data, and our data is very detailed in terms of what we collect. We see a really good attraction rate of people wanting to come to work for Hammersmith and Fulham. And we believe that, that's a lot based on what we're doing and the initiatives we're running, but also word of mouth, reputation. But yes, in answer to your question, we are seeing a real advantage in terms of the initiatives and the programs that we're running, which is helping us with the attraction in terms of wanting to come and work for Hammersmith and Fulham. When we put campaigns out, we get a good field of applications.
Thank you very much. I also know all the accreditations that you have in terms of the key charters of support from partner organizations. It's really good. Can you please give us some examples? How do these translate in terms of support for our members of staff? So you've got the menopause workplace pledge. So for a woman going through the perimenopause or the menopause,
Yeah.
what does that pledge offer to the woman facing some of those challenges? And also I'm thinking of the UK Says No More, the Together We Can End Domestic Abuse and Sexual Violence. So if a member of staff is also facing domestic abuse or as a survivor, how does this accreditation help that person?
Yeah. That's a really good question, because an accreditation is what are we doing that sits beneath that. And so there was quite a lot in there, but if I talked about the menopause piece first, we have what we call our Wellbeing Wednesdays. The Wellbeing Wednesdays they cover a whole range of subjects around health and wellbeing and resilience. But we would invite, we would invite our occupational health officers to come along to talk to our staff. We have also a small group that meets during their lunch hour. I think it's once every week, where they come together to talk about experiences and support. Plus we have our employee assistance program, which again will promote and campaign specific initiatives around menopause, but not just that. It's far more extended than just the menopause. It's the whole well-being piece. The other thing we do is we do ask staff, well, what would you like to hear about? What would you like us to come and present to you on in terms of the Wellbeing Wednesday? So that, we're making sure we're keeping an eye on the demand. And again, it's about, understanding what the workforce are telling us they would like to hear about as well. But yeah, so the accreditations are just a little part of it. It's what we're doing underneath all of that. And as you know, we do have our network groups. But I would say the groups themselves, the Wellbeing Wednesdays, the Employee Assistance Programme, the new benefits platform we're looking at, and our occupational health service, should it be required and needed.
Thank you very much. And one final question, if that's okay. So when staff leave, are there exit interviews?
Yes.
And from this exercise, is information gathered as to whether there are emerging things that maybe inform how we respond to some of the maybe areas that are being raised? Thank you.
Yes, so yes, we do have exit interviews process for leavers. It's not a mandatory process, so not everyone that leaves will want to or feel the need to complete the survey, but for those that do, we do analyse that data. And actually, not that very long ago, we took an update to the Resources Management Board on the back of what that data was telling us, so that, yes, we're looking at those emerging needs, and we're taking stock in terms of what does that mean? Have we got any gaps? What more do we need to do? What are we doing right? Yeah.
Just on that point, could I ask, what was the main reason for people moving on?
It's a combination of reasons, but the main reason was moving on for another job somewhere else. We do see churn, and churn's not a bad thing. So whilst we, you expect an element of churn, and I think that it's good to know the reasons why people are going. It's absolutely right to monitor that, but it's also a little bit around accepting that churn is good, so long as it's not excessive. And I think that shows in our turnover numbers that we shared.
Councillor Vaughan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for the report. Certainly second the point that it's very interesting. To sort of touch on what Councillor Perez was saying about retaining staff, obviously one of the key themes that we've got as council is being ruthlessly financially efficient. And you talked a little bit about the attraction of H&F. I just wondered if you could break out a little bit more about what people who join are saying about why they are attracted to work at H&F. Is it the job offering and the benefits that come with it, or are they attracted sort of primarily or partly by the sorts of work that we're actually doing?
Councillor, it's a combination. It's absolutely a combination. It will be, you know, wanting to, when I hear quite a lot of conversations around, particularly with new people coming to join the organisation through the corporate induction process, and people are excited about the borough. People are excited about coming to work for the borough. But there's also, you know, there are benefits and initiatives that working for a local borough provides to you. The other thing is that we've element of flexible hybrid working, which I think does help with some of that attraction as well, and retention.
So sort of strategically, what are the points that you're pushing in sort of job ads that are trying to attract, you know, sort of hook people in?
Well, we like to
most obviously, I guess.
Sorry. We do like to talk about the borough. So when we're putting our adverts out, we like to make sure that what we're saying about the borough is, you know, exciting, because there is a lot of exciting stuff going on out there. But we absolutely will refer to the job site where we do have all of our benefits. We call it total reward. And, you know, signposting people to those benefits, because that will be an attraction, and particularly in local government where you've got, you know, we do have generous annual leave and pension scheme.
Thanks. I mean, sorry, just to pick up on number of small points. In terms of the exit interviews, you mentioned that those are surveys rather than face-to-face interviews. I guess how rigorously are they followed up? Because that's obviously a good source of information. Yeah. But is it just a survey that people are sort of asked to fill in, or do you also sort of pursue them to see whether they want a sort of face-to-face discussion as well? Or so, be that maybe on Teams?
It's a really good question and a really good point. And ideally, we'd like to see our numbers higher in terms of those people that leave surveys. We offer it's a varying piece. So you can either fill in the survey, you can ask to meet with your manager, you can meet with a member of the HR team if you want. So in the actual leaving letter, we offer at least those three options in terms of an exit survey. I think your question was how robustly is that followed up, and I think we could do better there.
That's great. Sort of segueing a little bit onto management. I think the report talks a little bit about management. Obviously, there's also the growing our own, and there's the management training, management training that you mentioned. How are we sort of measuring and benchmarking the quality of the management across the organisation?
Yeah, so the management training or the management of the organisation?
Well, sorry, I mean, one feeds into the other in a sense, but I mean, obviously we're providing training, we're growing your own, but when managers are managing, how are you sort of measuring and then benchmarking the quality of what they're actually doing? I guess that then might feed a cycle round as to what the sort of training offering might be, I guess.
Yeah, thank you. So I mentioned earlier that we're launching the new online appraisal. We've always done appraisals. It's not doing appraisals isn't new, but actually having this online end-to-end functionality will really help us in terms of understanding a little bit better around the management of the competencies and the objectives that are set, and performance development plans, plus compliance with other requirements across the council. We'll have that central reporting that will not, it will be so much more streamlined, and we'll be able to do a better job of reporting that back out.
Okay, so you're saying sort of a bit more development needs to take place in terms of you'll have some more information, and presumably that might lead to sort of additional training offerings or additional way of
Absolutely, yes.
sort of, yeah, obviously we want to increase the quality of management across the
Yes.
piece as such, but it sounds like you're in a process of getting even more information. I guess, what do you do with the information you've got at the moment in terms of understanding the quality of management and what support and what support you can get
Yeah.
to sort of enhance
So-
that further?
Yeah, so at the moment, it's sort of very much it's locally gathered. I just wanted to go back to a point you made about the skills, the learning piece. The piece about the online functionality will really help us in terms of really understanding that skills needs analysis, and we'll be able to look at that centrally rather than sort of locally. And again, in terms of the, what do we do with the management data that we've got now? It is very much a locally managed piece. And what we would generally be doing is, ensuring that these things are happening. Obviously, in terms of training, we would evaluate in terms of making sure that that was making a difference. But yes, in going back to your question, yes, this will give us a much better position in terms of being able to bring back some really valuable and meaningful data around that management development piece and organisational development.
That's great. Thank you very much. I mean, moving on slightly from that, you mentioned a lot of the co-production training
Yes.
as part that's been going on. Obviously, it's great to hear about that. How have you managed to sort of measure how well that's become embedded within the organisation?
Yeah, so we're doing a piece of work at the moment. So there's two parts to that. One is obviously we want to make sure that we have got a good return on investment, and what we always said right from the very, very beginning when we were developing the training, working with Inclusion London, we were saying we need to know what's changed as a result of this, what's different. So we designed that training on the basis that once we'd done our first phase of the rollout, we will go back and we will analyse so that we can absolutely know what's changed as a result. We're doing that now, councillors. So we should be able to bring back some really exciting updates in the not too distant future.
I think that would be very interesting. Might be something that this committee could do in the next year. So I certainly thank you very much for those responses. I was also encouraged to continue to see the sort of work on apprenticeships and bringing people into the council and growing our own staff. So that all sounds very positive. But certainly in terms of some of those points, I wonder maybe that we'd be interested in sort of follow up on sort of perhaps a bit more rigorous on exit interviews. I guess I'd be interested in due course to understand how you're managing to look more strategically at the sort of quality of management across the organisation. That might mean that you can sort of divert resources to where they're needed strategically. And as I say, I would certainly be very interested in understanding the sort of how co-production's been embedded in the sort of report that you're mentioning.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Rowbottom.
Thanks, Lisa, and thank you, Mary. I just wanted to have a look at the graph, the kind of breakdown of numbers that's on page 11. I'm not sure what equates to in your slides about. That's where you have the nitty gritty on kind of new starts and how many were existing and new. I wondered if the kind of view you have on whether you have like information on how many were local, how many were borough residents. Is that a presumption?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. So you're looking at.
I'm looking at those numbers, but feel free to. I'm sure you could talk top of head about it. So I'll put forward my kind of like concern. There's only a kind of concern thesis, as it were, which is that I would imagine it's obviously very hard to stay in an expensive borough. So do you have a flavour of whether people are still living with parents? Are we importing people in rather than retaining them within the borough? And what are the kind of very practical measures, those kind of make or break things around accommodation? I know it's really hard, but if we can do something holistic to try and retain people, what that split is, just if you could talk a bit about that.
Yeah, but we're really lucky in that we have an amazing BI team that's here as well. But and so we do have access to lots of data that supports that enables us to understand the makeup of our workforce. But also, in addition to that, in terms of the apprenticeship programs that we run here, it's really exciting to see how many of our apprentices who joined us stay with us, and that's the same with the graduate program as well. But more so important in terms of your question around apprentices, because our apprenticeship program is very much for residents. I haven't got the actual detail here, but again, it's something we do look at, and we can bring back. Yeah, we do know. I think previously we've come to one of these meetings, and we are fully aware that many of our workforce are not local residents. But what we've done, Councillor, is we've worked hard to really try and attract local residents in terms of raising those numbers, and not necessarily to the council, but to local businesses and to local organisations. And I know that colleagues in economy will be fully focused on that as well.
And just one follow-up, if I may, Councillor Home, of the 197 starts, 48 were with the council. So we're basically a quarter of all the apprenticeships.
Yes.
Now, that's a fantastic reflection on us. Do we feel that we are utilising all the other major organisations in the borough that could provide, you know where I'm going with this? It seems I
think we could do more. I
Yeah,
think we
okay.
could do more. Absolutely do think
Yeah.
we could do more. And we are doing more. Yeah.
Is that something you're doing hand in hand with economy to step that up? Well, I suppose that's more economy, but do you, as a reflection, you think we could do more? And I wonder where that's sitting in terms of action and scrutiny. And everything.
We work really closely with the economy team, and it's something that we've always got our eye on. You'll know that we do apprenticeship events and we do National Apprenticeship Week, and it's at those events that we sort of really work closely together, but also other events, any events that we can get to, we'll go to promote working in the borough. And as I say, I think, yes, we have taken on quite a high proportion of people within the council, but actually there is more we can do across the borough, and we are doing it.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. I'll bear that in mind. It'd be really interesting because every time we go and do industrial strategy events, people are really seeing, the kind of C-suite of all these organisations want to do more. So I'm just wondering where that's not quite translating through numbers wise. But okay. Thank you very much.
I agree.
Thank you.
Just on the point of the cost of living in the borough, as in housing costs in particular, which is just been flagged, is that something that's come up on the exit interviews for people? It's not.
No, not at all, not at all. But that said, what has come up is people moving. So they've changed accommodation. I mean, that could be underlying, of course it could, but it doesn't specifically say it's because of the cost of living. It could just be that people have decided that a different period in life they're moving to work somewhere else.
I'd like to come back on, we talked a little bit about it, and that's this online appraisal system.
Yeah.
Can you just explain to me exactly how that's going to work? Because I kind of imagine an appraisal really being a sort of face-to-face and a two-way thing. Whereas the way that you're talking about it in terms of sort of an online tool, it sounds a bit more like maybe a skills audit or an experience audit rather than a sort of two-way thing that I would imagine be an appraisal, which you come to conclusions as manager and employee together. So if you could just say a little bit more about that.
Of course. And when we say online appraisal, that's the end-to-end functionality. It doesn't take away that face-to-face, absolutely important and vital communication process between the manager and the member of staff. But when we talk about, so that's what I was saying earlier, where this isn't new, we've always done appraisals, but this is enabling us to be able to report centrally, to be able to provide that really important, meaningful data, that will give us the "and so what" answers, but it, not to replace that very important meeting.
I mean, going back to Councillor Vaughan's point about the quality of management, obviously managers need to be
Reinforces.
trained to be to
Yeah.
appraise others,
Yes.
and therefore, you know, you hire the quality across the board. So,
Yeah.
Do you want to come back in on that particular point?
Yeah, sorry, sorry, just to segue back in, I was interested in the sort of link with the industrial strategy, actually. I wonder to what extent, I mean, obviously the industrial strategy and like the upstream pathway bond, for example, are obviously bringing partners in to give local young people, you know, sort of life chances and experience.
Yeah.
To what extent is that also extended to, you know, are you involved in that as the, sort of from a council perspective as well? Because presumably, as part of the industrial strategy, there could be sort of ways in to provide, you know, apprenticeships or other routes
Yeah.
for local young people.
No, that's
that way
correct.
as well.
That's correct. And what I've had conversations. I mean, the conversations are ongoing all the time. This isn't anything new, but it is around what opportunities we can explore, as I say, and it's not just, you know, there could be some really exciting secondment opportunities out there, and more. But it's those conversations that we're having as part of the dialogue with our colleagues in economic development as well.
Could I ask, I'm going to ask now about the age-friendly employer.
Yes.
I mean, what does that actually look like for somebody who's perhaps worked here for a long time, got lots
Yeah.
of experience? How are we utilising them to encourage less experienced staff?
Yeah.
And what's that flexibility? What does it actually mean?
Yeah. So we were accredited a couple of years ago, so we've had a couple of events since. And I think what was really exciting about the last event is we did have a mix of some employees that have been here for a very long time and some relatively new. And we talked about that sort of mentoring approach in terms of leveraging the experience. But also, more importantly, you asked what would that look like for someone? Well, what we want to do is we want to be able to say, you know, we are very lucky to be able to offer early retirement, phased retirement. And what does that mean for someone? So retirement workshops around pension, recognising long service, but also really utilising that long service to support the younger people coming through the organisation. And the last event we had was just a couple of months ago. They're chaired by our chief executive, who is the sponsor, but they were really, really positively received by the people in the room.
Councillor Daly on that point?
Thanks very much. Can I ask from the other direction, same sort of question? So we know that we've got an ageing workforce out there. There are people in their 50s and their 60s looking for roles with a lot of
Yes,
experience.
yes.
What does that look like from that perspective, please?
Yes, absolutely. We talk a lot about tapping into the untapped I've lost my wording, sorry. But yeah, you know, when we talk about being inclusive, that's exactly what we mean about, you know, we're not going out there and we're not, how we present ourselves is we are an inclusive organisation. We will look and recruit according to competencies. But if you are a member of the organisation, you know, we have a young careers network, as well as being accredited to the as an age-friendly employer. And this is the whole piece about not excluding people. And I think that's all about how we present ourselves, councillors. So, and then again, I said earlier about, you know, what's attracting people to us. Well, the word of mouth is very powerful as well, but also the visuals, the language we use. That's all part and parcel of how we make sure we're inclusive and we're not, you know, we're not excluding anyone in particular for any posts.
Okay, I think this is one area that we haven't touched that I was going to ask about, and that's the sort of final bit of your report, which is about staff safety. Certainly, sort of with it, being on the board of a voluntary sector organisation and hearing it from other people, and certainly I'm sure the staff in here, 145 King Street, I've got, public contact every day, and it does seem that sort of aggression and those incidents are higher than they once were. Just wondered if you could talk a little bit about the support that staff get if they do have difficult clients to deal with, either on the telephone or face to face. It's certainly something that I know has been flagged as a potential risk at audit committee. So I'd just be interested to hear a little bit more about what we're doing to address those issues.
Staff safety alongside staff wellbeing is incredibly important. Again, there's lots of mechanisms for staff to come and raise concerns if they've got them. We will address those concerns. We absolutely need to get the balance right in terms of, our residents as well, but we won't put people at risk. And you can see there's lots of initiatives we put in place there that we will work with our corporate health and safety team as well to go out to the different departments, to talk to colleagues, to do the risk assessments, to make sure that we're balancing that appropriately.
Thank you. Can I just ask one final question? I think unless anybody else has got anything. We've got Aisha Muhammad as sort of one fantastic apprentice awards. I think that was the young lady that might have previously come and spoke at this committee. Yes. Could you please send our congratulations to her at her various awards, and we remember her coming along, so I'd like to send that for the whole committee.
She may be watching, so
excellent. Well, if you are, Aisha, well done. Okay, just before I close, are there any other questions? Councillor Ree, are there any comments you'd like to make on this report as it comes under your cabinet portfolio, I believe?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair and Committee, and thank you very much for that presentation, Mary. I thought that was excellent. You can't deliver top quality public services in the borough without a top quality team behind them, and I genuinely think that's what we've got here in Hammersmith and Fulham. I think this report sets out how we've gone about strengthening that team and making sure that it's as effective and has the tools to be as effective as it possibly can be. So I'm really glad we were able to present that here this evening. We've got a team made up of skilled people. And that's because of the recruitment and the training that we've put in place. We're making sure that they're performing well through things like performance management, through having effective policies and procedures, through giving them the tools to do their job, and making sure that they feel included in the workplace. And I think just as importantly, we've got a workforce that broadly represents the borough. That we're able to understand the concerns that residents have, because we, as a workforce, we represent those residents. I think all that comes together to form a really effective workforce, and we've got 3 examples of incredibly effective members of the team here this evening. But yeah, I know everybody working in Hammersmith and Fulham is setting out to do the best job they possibly can do for the residents, and that's what we'd like to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ree. I think we brought a few points out of the report this evening. We certainly would like some bit more information around the sort of departmental breakdown of turnover of staff. I think the sort of longevity of staff would be quite useful to see as well. And there was a few issues raised around exit interviews and how we might actually get a bit more information about that and maybe strengthen up on that, and certainly how this all contributes in the long term to the actual quality, the overall quality of management around some of the issues we talked about, appraisals and some of the issues that Councillor Vaughan raised. And I think there's also the links with the industrial strategy and how we might actually be able to utilise the opportunities there perhaps a little bit more than we are doing so. So I think that was the main points that I got out of that. And I think, we could have a report back, certainly some written information back about some of those points, and maybe we'll invite you back again at a later point. So thank you very much for coming along this evening. Very good report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes me to the second item on the agenda this evening, and this is actually the policy and overview report, which will be going to full council. We do have time to make comments and to make minor adjustments before it's published for full council, but it's the opportunity really, I think, for us on this board and all of you guys as chairs of your policy and accountability committees to comment on what you've been doing over the last year, but also to perhaps ask other chairs, and it may well be that you can see some common issues that are coming out between the reports. I think looking at what we've looked at as the committee, it's been very strategic and very in keeping with some of the things that we're trying to do to make us even more ruthlessly financially efficient in terms of transforming services. We've done things, you know, looked at AI, we've looked at digital inclusion, we've looked at services, and that is the way that we need to go, and we obviously need to take our staff with us on that. So we've had a good report on how the staff will fit into that in the future. So I really want to ask the chairs if they've got any particular comments they want to make, highlights of their own reports that they'd like to make at this stage, or any questions you've got to one another about any of the work you've been doing. And then we can make any minor adjustments before this goes to be presented at full council. So anybody got any comments, suggestions, amendments that they want to make at this point? Councillor Vaughan.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I'll speak to David afterwards. There's one very minor typo in the part of the reports covering my pack. I think the main thing to point out was there is a lot of very interesting stuff, both in volume and quality, by the looks of it, that's going on in each of the packs. And clearly they've covered a lot of ground this year, including this board. I wouldn't particularly highlight anything. Obviously, perhaps the key thing that came to two things to note perhaps from my pack was we did have a presentation from the leader on upstream, the second phase of the upstream London, the second phase of the industrial strategy, which was a sort of comprehensive report that we went through. And secondly, we did actually have, which is a sort of cross-cutting theme that we have discussed, a presentation at one of the most recent meetings on sort of how co-production is working in the public realm area with disabled residents. And that had a lot of positive, coming back to the theme of the previous issue, there are lots of positives, I think, coming out of that and showing that co-production of policy across some of the council services and beyond is actually happening actually in action. So I think we can point to that. I'm sure that's happening elsewhere, and I guess others will bring that out in their packs in the year ahead. Yeah,
thank you, Councillor Vaughan. I mean, one of the things I think very early on, a couple of years ago, that this committee agreed to was that the policy and accountability committees look at co-production within their service areas. So that's really welcome that you've got had a chunky item on that. And I know it's been incorporated to other reports, but it's certainly something that's very, in keeping with the report we've had today as well. So we need to continue doing that over the next year. Are there any other chairs that would like to comment? Councillor Perez?
Though I think I would like to know that, I mean, it's been really good to have, to work in partnership as well and in collaboration with other key stakeholders, the NHS, our officers, and also other key representatives of our residents. So with the Health and Adult Social Care Policy Accountability Committee, for example, we have invited a report from Action on Disability. They did some focus groups and some listening exercises to hear more about disabled people's challenges when accessing NHS. And there was a report that came to the committee, and it was really good to have, to listen to, the challenge, but at the same time to have the NHS address some of those concerns and plan of ways in which some of those challenges can be mitigated. So it's about the element of co-production, and also the suggestions I have made, I think are very important going forward. I would like to see for each department to give an update on how that co-production has been embedded by each department. So yes, this is something that I'm looking at as well as doing going forward. But just to know that it's been very good and positive, and there's an update that you can all see. Thank you.
Yeah, there's an awful lot of work that we do in partnership with other services. So how we do that work and how that might shape the, council services going forward is actually becoming more and more critical as budgets become more and more difficult. So anything that the policy and accountability committees do in terms of driving forward policies that may mean that better partnership working, being more efficient, is very welcome. Any other points on the policy and accountability committees? Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Chair. We very recently, well, however recently you can have we have the meetings, we talked about greening the grey, and I'm really interested in how that is an area, and that's that stretches across all of the portfolios and comes in different ways into each of the policy and accountability committees. I'm really interested in bringing a kind of substantial piece in housing and homelessness within our social housing estates. There's a lot of grey and real opportunities to kind of be looking at social prescribing and all these kind of areas. We've got Councillor Ree with us, and we've had some real successes, I believe, in the Green Investment Fund. And I wondered if it would be a good opportunity to ask Councillor Ree to give us a bit of an update. I've spent some time on the streets lately for all the right reasons, and there's been some fantastic new greening going on, and I wondered if it now would be a good time to just have a bit of an update.
Thank you, Councillor Daly. I think it's also worth me saying that the outcome of the workshop that we had on greening the grey, and then we had a follow-up report come to this committee. That's something that I'm going to be following up on, so we may have another report back here. But if Councillor Ree has got some money to spend on some of those initiatives, it would be very welcome.
Yeah, so as you rightly point out, if you go just down the road from here, you'll see the great new rain garden that we've got installed along the road in King Street. I was up on Edith Road the other day looking at the new one that's going, or the 4 new rain gardens that are going in up there, replacing wasted concrete space with this bright new area that not just makes the place, it doesn't just make the place look nicer, it also serves a really valuable purpose in terms of absorbing rain and stopping flooding in the area as well. We've currently got the 3rd iteration of the Hammersmith and Fulham green investment out for people to invest in at the moment. They can get a rate of 4.2%, which is going to look even more attractive in the next few days when interest rates come down. But that's a 5-year investment, very low risk, and at a fixed return. We've seen over £2 million of investment now from residents into this scheme, and the current tranche is still open. I think at the moment we're on just over £350,000 out of the £500,000 limit. Although we've got, there is scope to extend that if we need to. We've got just under a month left for people to take advantage of this, but we'll certainly be looking to launch similar tranches in the future and raise more money this way because it's been so popular.
Great, thank you very much. Any final comments? No. If anybody has got any spellings, dots, whatever, before it gets ready to go to full council. Councillor Perez.
Just one final comment. Yes, I think it's really good to see that this report has got a chair's introduction. So it's good to see that that format in place as well.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for that, which leads me to the work programme for the next year. I do apologise to members of the committee, but I requested an additional meeting in July. There were a couple of items, not actually the items that are on the draft work programme, but items I felt that cost of living is an issue that we've looked at this committee, but we haven't looked at it in quite a long time, and the council are still doing quite a lot. Do we need to change some of the things we're doing? Do we need to do more? Can we take our foot off the pedal? So I've requested that a update on the cost of living come to the July meeting. Also, potentially some performance indicators from the corporate team. And I'm conscious that we probably won't have the meeting, which is scheduled at next April, or right at the end of April, because we might be in a time where we're not having meetings by then. And there is quite a lot of things to get through over the next year. In terms of what it says on the draft work programme, which is women's safety, looking at the Councillor Salusi's pack, he does have an item on the safety of women and girls. So I think the women's safety element, I will talk to him and suggest that maybe that's encompassed there. And one of the other items that I would like to add is transformation programme. Basically, we're doing a lot of work around transformation of different services. It's very strategic, and it very much comes under the umbrella of this committee. So that's something which we'll probably have in the autumn, either in September or November. Has anybody on the committee got any other suggestions of sort of very overarching strategic things which they think Councillor Daly?
Thanks, Chair. So one area that I'm looking at bringing into Housing and Homelessness Policy and Accountability Committee in the next year is around civic contracts. So sometimes this expresses itself as kind of antisocial behaviour within housing. And I know there's a lot of overlap with the Social Inclusion and Community Safety Policy and Accountability Committee, but it also has quite an overlap with the public realm and certainly absolutely with health. And I wondered if there was something around that we might get a chance to look at.
Okay, let's have a look at the scope of that and see where it's best placed to come, if whether we do a joint housing pack or something like that. We'll certainly
Thank
take
you.
that one away. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other suggestions? No, in that case, could I thank everybody for attending? Ask you to note that the 16th of July is the next meeting. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the evening, everybody.